Stan Bowman's reactions. You take a look at his career profile. The 9th GM in Blackhawks history since 09-2020. He had the president of hockey operations to his title. The youngest GM to lead his team in the Stanley Cup. 3 with Chicago and worked in the hockey ops with Chicago 2000-2009. Of course, when you hear the name Bowman, you think of Scotty Bowman and the great success of the Bowman family. And now as a GM, and Bill Guerin also named as the assistant GM. There's a reason why, Lotz, you can say, you know what, with that kind of pedigree, there's a reason to be excited about USA Hockey at the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I thought that Stan was super transparent there. That's great stuff. Now, you can look at Herb Brooks' team. He didn't want the best players. Oh, you guys,
miracle, yeah.
You guys aren't American. I forgot. You don't know the answer to this. He wanted the right players.
That's the line. That's right.
Would you guys please go watch Miracle? One of the best movies ever.
Kurt Russell.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Is that an affront to my citizenship?
That was definitely a shot.
We're going to revoke your citizenship if you fail another question.
Do you have any idea what I used to do for a living?
Hey, wait a minute. Dano just texted me. Ken Danico is out there listening.
No, that's right.
I got your back.
The pride of Edmonton.
Okay. You got my back. Thank you. He's a real American now, Dano.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, listen, there's a couple of ways to do it, and we'll be serious for a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do it with the right players. That worked. Canada, on the other hand, it's not really been their philosophy. They tried to do that. You remember when Robbie Zomner made the Canadian
League?
Right.
Yeah, it's very
you guys
true.
Remember Rob Zomner?
Yeah,
which was an incredible honor for him.
Right.
They did not win that year.
Right.
I personally believe take the best hockey players you can. It's not fair to judge some of our best American talent and say, well, you're not a checker. You can't do that. There's a lot of elite talent, as we see some names here, guys that are selfless, that can adjust their games to do different roles. I do think they'll end up doing that in the end. I know Billy Guerin, who's doing an amazing job, is going to be super instrumental in this, because that's what he's done with the Wild, quite frankly. But that is the key. Just because I understand you need roles, Stu, and you do need guys that'll play different roles.
Yeah.
But just because they haven't played that, for me, I would have some log arguments with these guys. Hey, we got to consider these guys. They're skilled players that can readjust.
No.
You know it and I know it. They're just talented.
Exactly right. We sit here and we speculate about what a U.S. Men's team would look like at this moment in time. And conversely, on the Canadian side, your greatest rival, quite, you know, I think matter of fact.
I noticed you didn't say our greatest.
I carry 2 passports.
Okay.
If you want me to come clean, I'm happy to do it right here.
That's okay.
I carry 2 passports. When it comes to international hockey, there's just one, and I go back to my roots in Kamloops, British Columbia.
There it is. Yes.
Okay, so we're clear on that. You could populate 2 rosters that look a lot like that American rosters with Canadian boys, Canadian athletes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't think that's an overstatement. I really don't.
No.
But to your point,
no offense
it's not the most talented team that wins out at the end of the day. So much has to do with injuries and luck and who's hot and who's not. But to your point, and this is an intangential or maybe an intangible point, is that it really takes management and a coaching staff that gets a player who really hasn't had to play a certain way, a checking role, a specialized role, a non-offensive role, so to speak, over the course of his career or for a long time. You got to get him to buy into that. And that is the challenge for the Canadian group, and I think to some degree for the American group now as USA Hockey has evolved.
It's been 40 years since we competed. The golden gold, Sidney Crosby. I'll give you guys some glory.
2000. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was really the last one.
Vancouver Olympics 2010
I'd love
was
to
pretty
see
good.
the U.S. rise up and win the
That
gold.
2010 game.
I think they have the personnel to do it. You need to find the right combination.
It's a fascinating point, but do you get the best players or the right fit? Honestly, skill, and we can always adjust.
We're excited to welcome him onto the show to chat about his newly appointed role with USA Hockey. Stan, first off, congratulations. I'm sure you've done a million interviews since that 2 o'clock presser earlier this afternoon. So I'll just start with this. You're going to be a busy man for the next year. How are you going to balance everything that you got going on? I mean, you got the Hawks in action, the trade deadline's coming up. Now you're going to start watching all the American players and figuring out what you want this team to look like.
You're right. There's a lot of work ahead, but it's a team effort, I think, both here at the Blackhawks and with USA Hockey. And we've got a lot of really smart people. Well, most importantly, Bill Guerin, who's going to be my right-hand man. But even beyond Bill, the advisory committee of other general managers, I've worked with that group going back about 8 or 10 years now, so I know them all well. They've got a lot of specific knowledge of their players and teams they play. So, we're going to gather as much information as we can. So it's certainly not just a one-man operation. I think it's a team approach, and we're looking at it that way. So for sure, there's a lot of work ahead. It's going to be a challenge, but it's something that I'm very excited to be part of.
Stan, in a ballpark range, what's the timeline like for picking the team? And what is the plan moving forward? I mean, do you have a camp at some point in the offseason where you invite a lot of guys and then whittle it down? I guess I ask this question because I wonder how close to the actual Olympics themselves you'll be able to make roster decisions, because there's injuries, there's older players. Are they playing well? Are they struggling? Younger players, are they ready? What is the timeline like for you guys?
Well, Pat Kelleher today mentioned that the goal would be to announce the team right around January 1st next year. So working backwards from that, we're going to have certainly the remainder of this season and the beginning of next season to watch players and evaluate them. It would be ideal if we could have a summer camp. I don't know if that's going to be possible. We haven't really heard that yet. So certainly if it's something that's allowable and other teams are doing, we would be happy to do that. I think it would be great. Not sure with the timing. The NHL is going to be ending later than normal, and next year is slated to begin on time. So, the one thing I think we've learned over the last year is that you have to be ready for the unexpected. So, the biggest thing right now is just, watch players and, come up with probably a wider net right now of candidates. And, we still have a lot of hockey to be played before next January the 1st when we would name a team. So, some players are going to change between now and then. And like you said, whether it's injuries or just player progression, we have to be current on those players. So that's the biggest objectives over the next, probably 6-7 months.
Stan, what is your overriding philosophy for building an international team like this? We've seen some teams kind of go positional specific or like checking role specific. You're looking for a penalty killer. And some teams we'll just take the 23 best players. We don't care if they're all centermen, if they right shot, left shot, whatever, and plunk them down. They'll figure it out because that's what makes them great. Where do you come down on roster construction for these short tournaments?
Well, we came up with, I was involved in most recently the World Cup tournament, which was certainly a little bit different. I was part of Team North America, and Peter Chiarelli and I were putting that team together. And, I think you have to have a good discussion with your coach. And we obviously don't have a coach yet. That's probably something we're going to focus on in short order here. But once you establish a coach and a coaching staff, I think you have to talk to them about what attributes they're looking for in players. There's no question that you have to be able to, a team is going to be successful when they have players in different roles. You can't just have everybody being, the top power play guy. And a lot of the players that we're going to be choosing are going to be top offensive players on their teams. But, some of them have to be able to play different roles on your team. So I think that's where we'll dive in and see, are they able to adapt their game, or do you have to look at players that have, more experience in those roles? Because certainly, you have to have a penalty killing group that you're confident. That's going to be a big part of these tournaments is your special teams, power play and penalty kill. I think it's safe to say we're going to have plenty of options on the power play. And then when you're looking at the PK, that's something we'll look into a little bit more. So I don't know if we're going to, announce a specific mentality or construction of the roster quite yet. I think, that'll probably play itself out over time. Right now, we're just trying to get as good a read as we can on all these players. We've got a very deep group of players. I think it's impressive to see when you look around the NHL, and every team has some of their prominent players that are candidates for this Olympic team.
You bring up a really good point when you talk about this being a collection of all superstars. They are all the best American players that you can find. And so when you're looking for a coach, you're looking for someone that can't just manage people, but can manage big personalities, guys that are used to getting the most minutes and playing in all key situations. So when you think about a potential coach for this team, what type of coach are you looking for? What makes a good coach in this situation, amongst other things? It's a quick tournament, couple of weeks, and all of that.
Well, first and foremost, we're looking for a coach that's had NHL experience. I think we're going to have NHL players there. So like you said, it's a good point that there is an art to dealing with these talented players. You have to be able to not only coach them when things are going well, but you have to deal with adversity. So, we're going to look at that. How do they handle that? How do you handle your star players? Are you able to, find them to buy into a team concept? And, that's something that certainly all the successful coaches have found a way to do that. Because it is a team sport. More than anything else, I think hockey, if you look at all the other major sports, our best players play less than half the game. So, we have to have contributions up and down the lineup, which is why it makes it so much fun of trying to assemble a team where players accept their role, embrace their role, and recognize the importance of their role, even if it's a different role than they're playing currently. I think when you're talking about the Olympics and you're talking about the opportunity to represent your country, I've found in the past that players can set aside their own personal, goals, and they look at what's best for the team. And that's something that our coach will certainly preach as well.
Stan, I want to go back to something you said before about staying current with the players, because I've always found that, again, players are getting better and they're struggling at different times in their career. Maybe in the middle of a guy's career, he could be going through a little bit of a slide and not as good as he played maybe earlier in his career. As you watch these guys and you weigh that, and you weigh experience with an older guys like maybe like a Joe Pavelski, TJ Oshie, against younger guys that, just for example, like a Brady Tkachuk, how does that play into this for you? Because, you're trying to create the best team you can for 3 weeks in February, not for, a career or for a long stretch of time.
You're right, EJ. It's a good point. It's something I mentioned earlier. In my experience in the World Cup, you see these players change quite a bit, especially the young players, over a matter of 6 to 12 months. And, when we first started that journey with Team North America, Austin Matthews wasn't even on our radar. He was playing in Europe. He hadn't been drafted yet. And then by the time we got to selecting the team, he had been drafted and he had played in the World Championships. And I remember talking to Peter Chiarelli saying, we can't leave this guy off the team. He's that good. Like I was over there. It was in Russia that year. I was working with USA and I got to see him up close and personal. And, he'd never played an NHL game before. And he was on that North American team because he came so far in just a short amount of time. So I think young players can really rapidly progress over the next, 9 to 10 months. So we're going to have decisions to make. And same thing with veteran players. Their games fluctuate as well. So the answer to the question is we don't need to make those decisions today. We got to keep an open mind. We got to look at all the candidates and continue to follow them. And then as we get closer to choosing our team, at some point you got to make a decision on who's best ready to help your team win.
All right, well, we could probably pick your brain all show long about this. While we wait for you guys to put your team together and pick a coach, we'll just have to deal with all the roster mock-ups that everyone in the business will be putting together over the next few months. But we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the gig. And we didn't even get to ask you about the Blackhawks.
I know.
With the deadline.
Got to come back.
Yeah, you have to come back, Stan. That's a deal. All right. Have a good one, and congrats again.
All right, thank you.